Thank you very much for joining our industrial IoT session. My name is Ervin Leibovici, and I am the CEO of a company called Nurego, which is in the business of optimizing your business models in an experimental way, just to latch on what was said in the previous session. I am privileged and honored to host here John Magee, which is the Chief Marketing Officer for GE Digital, a newly formed business unit for General Electric. And John is going to talk to us. We're going to have a little discussion here, and hopefully we have a little bit of time for questions from you guys. We're going to be talking a little bit about the industrial internet operating system that is being developed by GE, and that it's about to launch here fairly soon. So without further ado, hello, John, welcome.
Hello, Ervin.
Can I ask you to maybe, for starters, just say a few words about yourself and your position at General Electric?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everyone. So as Ervin said, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for the platform software at GE. And I've been there now about 4 years, spent most of my career at software companies in the Valley here, and joined when GE started up this Industrial Internet of Things initiative about 4 years ago. And GE had a lot of software already in businesses like GE Healthcare and GE Aviation and Power and Water and Energy and all these different areas. But what the company saw about 4 years ago was that IoT was going to be a really big deal, especially for the industrial sectors. And so that's what launched the software center where I work in San Ramon in the East Bay here. We've got over 1,200 people there, data scientists, architects, cloud specialists, building technologies to drive the industrial internet. And so, from GE's perspective, this is transformational, not just for the business, but in terms of the culture and the opportunities that we see out there.
So just out of curiosity, can I maybe see a show of hands from those of you that understand the difference between IoT, and everybody talks about IoT. A lot of us have these Apple Watches, kind of walking around with those. And then industrial IoT, which is what we're talking about here. So can I see a show of hands of who's knowledgeable about the difference? Cool. So I'd say about a third. So can you maybe help John, the other 2/3, explain a little bit about, everybody talks about IoT. It's one of those, I think they say on the Gartner hype chart, this is like up there. I don't know if there's anything which is higher. So everybody talks about IoT, and then suddenly you guys, the largest manufacturing company in the world, come with this industrial IoT thing. So help us out. What's the difference?
Sure. So I think the basic ideas of connectivity, being able to get visibility on devices, on machines, on equipment, those hold true across all the IoT domains. You can think of the industrial internet, the industrial IoT space is really a subset of that, focused on some of the unique requirements of the industrial sectors. And when I say that, I'm talking about everything from transportation, power generation, all types of healthcare. So these segments where typically the assets, the equipment, the devices are critical to running the business. They have certain requirements around things like security and availability that aren't found in the consumer segments. So there's enough differences there that when you think about the technologies required to capture the opportunity, we see a need for a special set of those technologies. And that's what led GE to build this Predix platform that is sometimes characterized as an operating system for the industrial internet. It's really a software platform to meet the requirements of the industrial sectors. And from a business perspective, there is a lot of hype around IoT right now, and it is at the top of Gartner's hype cycle just before it goes into the trough of disillusionment. But I think clearly there's a lot of potential across a lot of sectors with IoT. I think in the consumer areas and some of the commercial sectors, people are still scratching their heads a bit and saying, where's the ROI? Where's the value going to be to really make money from these types of solutions? In the industrial sector, that's not the case at all. There's billions and billions of dollars of waste and inefficiency in the global industrial infrastructure that can be taken out of these technologies. there's billions and billions of dollars of optimization that can be done through the connectivity, the data, the analytics, and the optimizations that we can pull off here. So just keeping things up and running, improving performance, improving fuel efficiency, improving the performance of a rail network or a hospital throughput from a patient perspective, lots and lots of potential in the industrial sectors.
Thank you, John. So this is indeed a sort of a, I mean, from looking from the outside, it's quite interesting. This is, again, I think a 130 years old company making, I don't know, $130 billion a year or something.
Yep.
So this is a big company suddenly going into developing software and analytics and even a platform for others to develop on top of. So how come? Why is that important? How did you come up to this decision? Is this a necessity? Is it a strategic move? What are the implications for the business going forward? Are you going to move off from turbines to doing software, compete with, I don't know, all the other big software houses, or what?
So I think you're right. GE's been around for a long time, over 130 years. It's actually the only original surviving member of the Dow Jones Industrial Group. And we point to that because the company has remade itself many times, opened it up, got into new businesses, and the mindset of the company is very much what is the next big thing and how do we have to change. So we are going through a lot of change. The investments I talked about, over $1 billion R&D investment here in California around industrial internet platform technologies. But it's not just in California, it's across the company. And just about 3 weeks ago now, we announced the formation of a new GE business called GE Digital, which brings together the capabilities and people in the San Ramon Software Center with a global group of the business software teams that develop in the different verticals into a new P&L, a new business to go after the opportunities that we see here. So it's a big change for us. As I said, though, GE's been doing software for a long time, but what we saw was that if you look at all these different verticals, software in many cases has kind of evolved in a very proprietary to those verticals ways. Sometimes there's a good reason for that, proprietary networking protocols, different ways of approaching connectivity, embedded intelligence and things like that. Sometimes it just was a legacy factor, and we saw a lot of opportunity to do things in a more consistent horizontal way. So the platform that we built, Predix, we initially built for GE's businesses. And that covers quite a lot of ground of the industrial sectors because we're large enough, it's kind of a microcosm of the broader industrial world. But those requirements, we looked at the requirements across energy, across power distribution, renewables, healthcare, all these different environments, factored those out into common capabilities for security, for connectivity, for writing analytic applications, for dealing with machine data, all these kinds of specialized requirements. And that's what we put into the platform. And now what we're doing is at the point of commercializing that externally and making it available not just to GE businesses, but next year we're making it available to the market at large. So yes, we will compete with some of the software companies out there, effort on the industrial opportunities and the unique requirements that they have.
So actually, to put a little bit more meat behind this commitment, I think there's public knowledge that some major reorganization has taken place recently within GE, all across your business units,
yep,
to kind of show your commitment to this roadmap. I know, I've been there. There was a big event on the beach, on the shore in downtown San Francisco just a few weeks ago. So tell us a little bit about the actual down-to-earth actions that you guys have been taking upon yourselves and executing already, which would sort of allow the audience here to understand how committed a really, if I may say, old school company, in the most positive way that I can say this, but honestly, an old school company, how committed you are to going to what sounds like a major, major change on your course forward.
Yeah, so I think, again, this goes back about 4.5 years ago now when we really started this journey, and the reorganization to create GE Digital as a business is the latest step in that that I mentioned before. But it's really a recognition, this idea that software is eating the world has been applied to a lot of industries. Many of us went through the original phase of the internet where there was a lot of disruption of business models in consumer areas like music and e-commerce and things like that. Industrial sectors move a little slower, but we see the same potential for technology disruption leading to business model disruption, leading to all kinds of new value propositions. And they're seeing a lot of examples of that in the market already. And so it was a recognition of a couple of things. When we have very sophisticated technologies like jet engines and gas-powered turbines and MRI systems, there's a lot of technology that goes into that. So we are a very innovative technology company on the equipment side, but increasingly software plays a bigger and bigger role in that. And so if you fly an airplane across the country today that has a GE jet engine on it, when that airplane lands, we've got more than 1 terabyte of data that comes off of that flight for those engines. And we collect that all over the world. So we can do things like predictive analytics around maintenance, so we can spot problems before they occur. That's hugely valuable to the uptime of the airline. But you can also look at that data and start to do optimizations around the way the pilot flies the plane for fuel efficiency. It's a record of everything that happens, when the flaps are lowered on the plane, how it's handled on the ground. So there's a lot of optimizations that go into the equipment itself, but then all the operations around that equipment. And we see this over and over again, this kind of pattern. So if you take wind, for example, renewable energy from wind-powered turbines, we can put analytics and embedded intelligence on an individual wind turbine, and we can do sophisticated things like, again, predictive analytics, understand when something needs to be replaced so you can fix it before it goes down. But you can also start to optimize the pitch on the blades to get better performance of that turbine. But a turbine, a single wind turbine, is always part of a bigger farm, right? And it turns out there's a lot that goes on to optimize the output of a complete farm, a set of turbines. And we can do analytics at that level to improve the output of the wind farm by as much as 3 to 5%. Small percentages, millions and millions of dollars to the operators of that equipment. So that pattern of understanding what's going on with a piece of equipment, using data analytics and connectivity to optimize the performance of that equipment, and then looking at all the operations around that equipment has a big business impact, whatever vertical you're talking about. I'll give you one more example on this pattern because it's a really important insight, I think. If you think about locomotives on a train, right? So GE is a big manufacturer of locomotives. A locomotive is basically a data center on wheels today from a GE perspective. We've got over 16 different subsystems, sensors all over the place, compute power, looking at all kinds of aspects of that single locomotive for a lot of reasons. But then we can also look at the whole performance of the network, so the larger network. So a train is a fixed closed system, so optimizing it requires certain analytic approaches to link it up with the suppliers, with the different aspects of trucking and shipping and other things connecting to that. So that principle of data off a single asset leading to data optimizations across the whole network of operations plays out over and over again in the industrial sector. So this is what GE saw as the big driver. And practically what we're doing is really organizing to get the right horizontal technologies to meet the requirements of all these different solutions so that we and our customers and our partners can go faster, because the industrial sectors have been way too slow in terms of software innovation, and all of that is about to change. And so we're dealing with those horizontal technologies while still bringing the vertical expertise that we have to bear at the application level in our verticals, and working with partners who want to go into other use cases and other solutions. GE's big, but there's no way we're going to develop all the applications that the industrial world's going to need over the next 20 years. And we're very much working with a lot of partners and ISVs and others to take advantage of the opportunities.
Yeah, so actually this is indeed very, very impressive. I can tell you sort of from a first line experience, we've been working with GE for about a year now, very, very closely. And it is nothing less than humbling to see how such a huge company changes course and becomes a software company. And I think John here was a little bit modest, but the well-kept secret is that I think GE just became one of the top 10 software companies in the world just by creating GE Digital and putting all together all of the engineers, software engineers around the company. Quite impressive. Let me ask you, following from a previous comment, so this is a busy space, right? The IoT enabling technologies, software technologies, services is a busy space. Everybody wants a piece of it. A lot of it is hype, but even if you take the hype out, the typical, 80, 90% hype, you're still left with some serious people. And IBM and Microsoft, to name two. Amazon seemed to have jumped the gun lately. We visited yesterday with Salesforce. Rita from Salesforce is right standing up at the back of the room here. and we learned from Salesforce that they have an IoT platform. So everybody does an IoT platform. So how is Predix, your platform, the GE platform, how is it going to be able to differentiate? What are the unique values the unique features that you're going to offer?
Sure. So I think two big areas for us. One is the technology focus on the requirements of the industrial sectors. So being able to communicate with existing legacy systems. So we've got existing legacy IT systems, SAP data and Oracle data and things like that that can be brought in. But you've also got a whole set of legacy systems, control systems, and other types of industrial software that you need to interoperate with, as well as things like the optimizations for time series data. So machine data, machines have a specialized format of data, very different requirements in doing this at scale. And we've launched a cloud platform called Predix that manages this kind of data and the analytics around that type of data. You know, it's very different dealing with business data that comes at the speed someone's typing versus machine data that comes fast and large at massive scale, much bigger than the data sets we see in the consumer areas. So these kinds of optimizations, security, compliance, regulatory requirements that we're building in to the platform so that developers get the advantage of what we've had to do already to meet our internal objectives and our go-to-market objectives and can build on that platform. So a lot of technologies unique to the space that we've focused on. The second big piece is more on the commercial side, where we're really putting a focus on an ecosystem, a marketplace, if you will. So the idea, and Ervin, your Nurego tools are a key part of this for our strategy of being able to offer a marketplace that can handle billing for customers, that can get them into the distribution of the GE industrial world. So we have to build data center capacity all over the world. We're in, over 50% of our revenues outside the US. We're in China, we're in Azerbaijan, we're in Africa, we're in Europe, we're everywhere where the industrial requirements are. And so by having our platform out there, developers get essentially global distribution into this GE ecosystem, and that's a big value proposition, as well as the tools to manage their utilization and their applications themselves directly.
Thank you. This is, I think, very inspiring. One question which is very relevant, I think, to the audience here. Just out of the audience, again, a show of hands, how many people here are involved in developing software that is for the cloud? Okay, wow, not bad. So these people, a lot of them coming from Israel, would be really interested to understand how, what's your thought on working with startups? Not, out of Israel, because this is an Israeli conference, but in general. You're the big guys. How you set up to work with small people, small companies, which don't have the size and frankly, the maturity that you would expect, but have some very nice and cool technology that you could take advantage of.
Yep, absolutely. And we've been doing that for many years. So GE's been in Israel since the 50s. In the last few years, have been very active in venture. So I'm involved in the software part of the GE Ventures portfolio. Others are looking at healthcare and other areas. So we have, I think, 12 active investments right now with companies like Theta Ray, who does anomaly detection, with companies like CheckCap that does the little camera inside the pill that you swallow for colon detection. Recent investments in companies like Morphosec. So, and Solar Edge was one that had a very successful IPO just last year. So we've got people in Israel in a global research facility that are working with other companies and folks there, and we've got our venture group very active now. And most recently with this Predix platform, we launched a startup accelerator program. We've got 4 startups in the inaugural group, if you will, that we just kicked off, launched officially in Herzliya on September 29th, and we're looking for more innovation startups. One of the big ideas here is the industrial sectors have not benefited from the app economy in terms of innovation and new ideas and new software. And part of that is because of those silos of technology that I mentioned across different areas. There's the opportunity to break that down now with the cloud, with new standard DevOps approaches and distribution models. So our goal is to get a lot more good ideas into the mix. And as I said, We're going to build applications for the verticals that we're in, but there's a ton of opportunity beyond what we can cover and what other traditional industrial companies can cover. And we think that's going to set off a wave of innovation that's going to require the ideas and innovation from startups all over the world. And of course, Israel is, I think, second to the Valley itself in venture investment right now. There's a lot of good ideas, a lot of companies, and we're very active there. So.
Okay, so I think the short answer is Herzliya. There's an accelerator there. Everybody that is interested, there's a process in place. And if John is a busy man, if it's you don't know how to get there, just call me up. I'm going to be here for the rest of the day. You're going to be here for another couple hours.
Around. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, John, for this very enlightening presentation, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you.